Thank you for viewing the Katy ISD Gifted and Talented Awareness Session presentation. We hope that the information presented will help guide you in your decision of whether screening for gifted and talented services is appropriate for your child. In this presentation, we will be covering the following topics. What does being gifted and talented mean? What are some of the characteristics of a gifted child? An overview of the gifted program services here in Katy, screening and identification process, how to refer your child, and information on completing your parent checklist. The Texas State Plan defines a gifted student as a child or youth who performs at or shows the potential for performing at a remarkably high level of accomplishment when compared to others of the same age, experience, or environment, and who exhibit high performance capability in an intellectual, creative, or artistic area. They possess an unusual capacity for leadership or excel in a specific academic field. On the chart, you will see a comparison between characteristics of a high-achieving student and a gifted learner. The high-achieving student knows the answer, learns with ease, completes assignments, enjoys school, absorbs information, is a good memorizer, and is pleased with their own learning. Where the gifted child asks the questions, already knows, initiates projects, enjoys learning, manipulates information, is a good guesser, and is highly self-critical. As you consider whether you want to have your child screened, think about these characteristics and where your child fits under the high achiever or gifted learner. The screening and services provided in Katy ISD are guided by the Texas State Plan, which says that a district must establish the expectation that the screening criteria for the district's program match that district's program design, that students who are identified should have the expectation of success in the program, and that the district have its own identification requirements based on the type of program the district is offering. At the elementary level, the program is Challenge. It is a pull-out model where students leave their regular classroom one full day, beginning at grade 1. The Challenge class may include students who are multi-grade students on a campus with a small GT enrollment. So for example, first and second graders may meet together on Monday, while third, fourth, and fifth graders meet together on Tuesday. The focus in the Elementary Challenge program is on the general intellectual ability. Each year there is a theme with 3 high interest units that are covered under that theme. This year the theme is systems, and the 3 units are ecosystems, economics, and energy. Embedded within that curriculum are aspects of math, science, social studies, and language arts, along with creative problem solving, learning how to question. They often take field trips and research and independent studies. Some questions that are often asked about the elementary program is, how is my child evaluated in Challenge? Well, they're going to be recorded on the report card at the end of each grading period with a score of an excellent, satisfactory, needs improvement, or unsatisfactory. There are no formal letter grades. The competencies are going to evaluate the skill development, the task commitment, and the independence and self-directed learning of the Challenge students. What happens in the regular classroom when my child is in Challenge? Well, we know that learning in the classroom will not stop on the day that the challenge students leave. So we ask that teachers who introduce a new concept on that day make sure upon the return of the challenge students that they have an opportunity to review what's been covered, or that the teacher pre-assess to make sure if the student already knows the topic or the information, there's no reason to have to pull them back. It's an excellent opportunity for them to work with other students in their classroom in smaller groups. Is my child expected to make up the work that is missed on challenge day? On the day that the students go to challenge, they are working in their challenge classroom. So we do not require them to go back to their regular class and do any class work that is done. However, we do expect them to turn in any homework before they leave for challenge, and that they find out what the homework assignment is for that evening so that they will have it ready for the next day. We know that sometimes that there are activities that are carryover from a previous day, so sometimes things may need to be done, but as far as doing worksheets and taking assignments that were done as classwork, we do not require that of the challenge students. The secondary program changes in that it is now looking at the specific subjects of language arts, social studies, math, and/or science. Students at the secondary level may be identified for one or more than one of the areas. They don't have to qualify for all four to be identified. And services are through our pre-AP, AP program. Students are often clustered with other GT students, and also in some cases in a class with pre-AP and AP students who are not identified as GT. There is a weighted grade for this program, so if they get an A, instead of it being worth 4 grade points, it's worth 5. And the curriculum that is delivered is the pre-AP, AP differentiated curriculum. Some questions that are often asked about the secondary program: is GT more work? Well, GT students should not be expected to do more, but instead do more open-ended type work. They may receive a assignment in lieu of a traditional assignment. The teachers in the GT, pre-AP, and AP classes are required to have attained 30 hours of GT training. So we know these teachers know how to work with GT students. In addition to having the 30 hours, GT teachers are required to receive 6 hours of GT update each year. A lot of times replacement assignments are more typical rather than having more additional work. I understand that most GT secondary students are clustered in pre-AP classes, so what is the advantage of being GT? So the answer to this is a student who has been identified for gifted and talented services has an educational need. And by having that identification, we're placing them in a classroom where we have that teacher who has the GT training to look for those traits and to be able to work with that child and address their unique needs in that classroom. Also, by clustering them with other GT students gives them a sense of a learning community. Many of these students have been together since elementary school, and they help support each other emotionally, socially, and intellectually. These students also create a dynamic in the classroom where the dialogue and the depth and complexity of conversations in that classroom are increased due to their presence. Is it advisable to take all pre-AP GT classes? That actually is an individual student decision. It really depends on the strengths and interests of the child. What if they're not identified in all areas? Then the pre-AP, AP program, or academic classes may be best for them. If they are only identified for one and the following year they are interested in being in more or additional GT courses, they can ask for additional screening in the spring each year. My child is approved for a course for next year, but we decided not to enroll in that course for next year. Can my child enroll in that GT course the following year? No, when a student is screened, the expectation is that they will move into that program for the next academic year. If they skip that, then they would be exited and they would have to screen again the next spring to requalify. Additional options for students. Destination Imagination is a problem-solving program that's offered at all levels. This is something that students don't have to just be in GT to participate. You would need to check on your campus to see if this activity is there. I would say at this point most of the teams have already been formed, but it might be something to keep in mind for next year. We have a parent group, Katie Parents of the Gifted and Talented. They offer activities and events and information for parents as well of students in the GT program. There are summer scholarship opportunities for activities that can be done, camps and programs in the summer. There's an independent studies elective that is offered for grades 8 through 12. At the junior high level, we have the academic pentathlon. At the high school level, the decathlon and octathlon. And for seniors, we have the PACE mentorship program. Again, except for the KPGT events, most of these are open to any student, not just gifted and talented. The screening in Katy ISD uses multiple criteria for our identification process. I want to point out that each of these are equally weighted. One does not weigh more than others. We have some qualitative measures as well as quantitative. For qualitative measures, we're going to look at the parent checklist. This is the first thing you'll turn in. You will have an opportunity to rate your child on a score of 1 to 4. 1 meaning that you do not see the trait often or not at all. 4 means you see it almost always. And then you will also give examples of how you see those traits demonstrated at home. We also collect a classroom observation from the teacher, the elementary level. It's a longer checklist with many traits that are observed in the classroom where the teacher, or if the student has more than one teacher, we ask that both teachers collaborate to complete that checklist. At the secondary level, the checklist is more subject specific, where the traits that are listed on their checklist directly correlate to the course or the subject that the teacher teaches. In addition, we also collect some testing scores. We conduct an ability test. Ability tests show the potential for the students, and these are normed by the age of the student. We collect an achievement measure for elementary. That's going to be reading and math. We add in science for the secondary level. Those are normed by the grade level the student is in. For grades 1 through 4, we use an intelligence test score if needed, if we're looking for that 5th or 6th positive indicator. Again, we're looking for the potential of the students. At the elementary level, we are looking at 6 criteria. You must have 5 positive for identification. At the secondary level, we're looking at 3 out of 4 criteria. To refer your child, the first thing you'll need to do is to pick up the appropriate parent checklist. There are 2. There is one for elementary and one for secondary. You can get that from your campus or from the Katy ISD website at katyisd.org. Go to departments, look for GT Advanced Academics, and the checklist is there in English and in Spanish. You'll need to return that form to either the campus counselor, the front office, the challenge teacher, or the GT facilitator at your campus. The deadline for submitting your forms will be communicated through the campus on newsletters, web pages, and the district website. Returning the checklist is the first step. The signature that you put on that parent checklist gives us the authorization to conduct the screening, and it also gives us permission to service the child if they are identified for services. Testing takes place at the campus during the school day. If you are the parent of an elementary student, that is done by a GT proctor who comes to the campus. They will send home a notification of a testing window of about 2 weeks. They do not give a specific day and time. We need to offer them flexibility as many of them service more than one campus. When you complete your parent checklist, as we said before, you'll score them between a 1 and a 4. When you give them a score of a 3 or a 4, we ask that you give us a specific example of how you've seen that trait demonstrated in your child. If you do not give a score of a 3 or an example for a score of a 3 or 4, the score will revert back to a score of a 2. As I said, testing occurs on the campus. At the elementary level, it's done through a GT test proctor. At the secondary level, the GT facilitator on that campus will conduct the screening. At our secondary schools, the GT facilitator is there either 1 or 2 days a week, depending on the size of the GT enrollment, and they conduct the screening on the days that they are servicing that campus. Our belief is that if students are well enough to be at school, they're prepared to take the screening assessments. But if they are not well enough to be at school, we do ask that you go ahead and keep them home. Any screening can be made up at a later date. We would rather catch them when they are feeling their best. The decision for GT placement comes from the campus selection committee. They will meet to evaluate all the indicators and determine the appropriate placement. That is usually an administrator, the challenge teacher or facilitator on the campus, and a counselor, and they have all been trained in nature and needs of gifted learners. There is not a single indicator that will guarantee that a child will qualify or keep a child out. Multiple indicators will determine that decision. The placement decisions are sent in the U.S. mail when everything is complete. It is a lengthy process, so we ask that you bear with us. Testing begins in January, and final decisions are not made until May, sometimes at the end of May, elementary. The letters for elementary go home after the end of the school year, so be patient. The test proctors will not be able to give you any information. The challenge teacher, the GT facilitator, will not be able to give you information during screening. We wait and collect all the information, and it is all sent out at the same time. We do have a process for filing a formal concern if you are concerned about your placement decision. And children who are identified are not screened again each year. As long as they are being successful in the program, then we do not rescreen them unless necessary. If your student does not qualify, they can be rescreened. Again, we often have students who screen several years in a row. The GT facilitators will work with parents to determine what is the best fit for your child if they are moving from the elementary challenge program to the secondary program. And if you leave the district and you've been identified as a GT student, The student will return back into the program as long as they are returning at the same level. So for example, if your child leaves in grade 3 and returns in grade 5, after review of their documents, they would be placed back into the program. However, if they left in grade 3 and they came back in grade 6, some reevaluation may be necessary since the program will have changed from the general intellectual ability program to the subject-specific program. Some additional questions. If my child is not successful, then you would need to contact the challenge teacher or facilitator about exiting the student. We want to do what's in their best interest. Can they leave the program? Yes, we have formal exits and furloughs in place. An exit means that they are totally leaving the program. A furlough is a temporary exit for a specific reason, and those are detailed in KDISD board policy. Some examples are a scheduling conflict, and furloughs are limited to a specific time frame. Some additional questions. If you disagree with the placement decision, you would need to contact the facilitator within 15 school days of receiving your notification letter. If that letter is received in the summer, you will contact the facilitator within 15 days when the new school year begins. If you have questions about the secondary courses, contacting the counselor might be your best option. Your GT facilitator may also be able to assist. Attending course selection night at the secondary campus would also be very beneficial. If you move and change from one school to another, students who are identified in KDISD at one campus, their placement carries over to their new campus. Each of our criteria is district specific. It's not campus. So if you move within the district or your school is changed by rezoning, your child will remain in the GT program. If you have any questions about the screening, your first contact will be at your campus, your elementary challenge teacher, or if you're at the secondary level, the GT facilitator. Those names can be found on the district website by campus, and the counselor at your child's school can also help you with the screening process. If you have any questions, you can call our office at 281-396-2383, or you can send us an email at advancedacademics@kdisd.org. We hope that this information has been helpful and that you have the needed tools to make a decision about whether screening your child for GT services is the right decision for them. Again, if you have any further questions, please contact your teacher, facilitator at your campus. Here are some links that may be beneficial. That's our district website, kdisd.org. We are the Department of GT and Advanced Academic Studies. Our parent group, kpgt.org, the Texas Gifted, and the National Association for Gifted Children. This presentation is posted on our website. Thank you so much for listening and checking out our program in KDISD.